Welcome, 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 everybody. My name is Amanda Poole-Walsh, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Astrology Hub. I'm here today with Donna Woodwell, our shamanic astrologer, and we have quite a webinar planned for you. And I'm just really excited to be sharing this space with you and can't wait to hear your questions and just connect in. So when you do have questions, go ahead and chat them in. And we have our awesome Astrology Hub team member, Ryan, who is getting all the questions together, and he will share those with me. We will do a Q&A at the end. We're also going to have a guided meditation at the end. So just stick in there all the way until we're done. We have an action-packed webinar for you. One little note on your Q&A, or on your questions that you submit, just try to stay away from specific questions about the chart. We have a couple hundred people on here, so getting into specifics about individual charts, this isn't exactly the right time for that. Save those for another forum, which we do have those types of forums sometimes too. But right now, let's keep the questions to the webinar content and shamanic astrology and any questions you have about that. All right, so I wanted to start with just a little bit of background about why shamanic astrology, why this webinar, and why the shamanic astrology training course that we're going to be launching soon that we'll talk about in a little bit as well. And the reason why both Donna and myself and the team at Astrology Hub, all of us are so excited to be sharing shamanic astrology with you is because so many of us feel so disconnected to the people around us, to the place around us. We feel unsupported. We feel alone. There is an overwhelming sense that we are not connected with something bigger. And this can really create a hopeless feeling. And so now more than ever, with our planet in the state that it's in, with people, a lot of people really suffering, we feel that it is such an amazing time to connect back in with the wisdom that the indigenous cultures have known for thousands of years, and also that our ancestors have known. And that is that we are connected to something larger. That we have guidance and support from other realms. That we have tools and techniques that we can use to actually tap into that guidance in a really potent and palpable way. A way that will actually transform our daily reality, help us infuse spirit into everything that we do, into every day, and really just bring the magic back into our lives. And so I wanted to tell a little story to illustrate the practical use of these type of shamanistic tools. And I'm going to use the canvas of Hawaii to tell this story. So I live on Maui now, and I spent 2 years living on the Big Island. And on the Big Island, there is a mountain called, a volcano called Mauna Kea. And Mauna Kea is one of the tallest mountains in the world, making it a perfect observatory for the sky. So astronomers love it, scientists love it, and they have proposed to put billions of dollars worth of equipment on top of Mauna Kea so that we can actually view deeper into the universe than we've ever been able to do with our technology. Now, Mauna Kea is also a place that is considered to be extremely sacred for the Hawaiian people. It's also a place that is the home of a lot of endangered species. And so the environmentalists also want to protect it. So there's a feud or a battle going on between these two camps, kind of like the science and the sacred. And I actually was on the beach. There's a dad that has children at the school that my children go to. And he is one of the scientists that is actually building the telescopes that are meant to go on top of Mauna Kea. And he was explaining to me why they believe it's so important that they're able to put this equipment up there. And again, it's really just to be able to peer into the cosmos in a way that we never have, supposedly. I also have had the pleasure of studying with some amazing Hawaiian kahunas as I've been out here on these islands. And a kahuna is the equivalent of a shaman in the Hawaiian spiritual traditions. And this one particular kahuna that I was speaking with was saying to me, because we were talking about this issue with Mauna Kea, that the Hawaiian Islands are so small in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in comparison to the ocean around them that planes often fly past them. Even with our technology, they miss their target. They fly past them and don't land right on the islands. And yet, thousands of years ago, the Polynesians found these islands in the middle of the Pacific without the use of technology. They actually got in their canoes and found these islands in the middle of the Pacific. And how did they do that? And what he explained to me is that the way that they did that is because they were in communion. They were actually speaking with the planets. They were speaking with the stars. They were being guided and led to this home that they were looking for. And so his point was they have had a more sophisticated relationship, a more sophisticated understanding of the universe, of the cosmos, without the use of technology, without the $1 billion in telescopes. So what we want to convey with you here today is that this information is still available to us, that we actually, each and every one of us, can enter into a relationship with the planets and the stars, and we can use that information. The Hawaiians used it to find their home. We can use it to find our purpose. We can use it to find right action. We can use it to find right speech, and we can actually use it to create a life of joy. And so, why Donna Woodwell? Donna Woodwell has been such a gift in my life. She is one of the first people, you know, I've been steeped in spirituality ever since I moved to Hawaii from New York City. And so I'm familiar with the idea of having angels as my guide, or spirit guides, or ancestors that I can call upon. But she was the first person who really spoke to me about the ability to tap into the planets in the same way that the planets are consciousness, and that we can actually call upon them for support in the same way we would call upon any sort of spirit guide, and that actually they need us too. And so there's things that they are trying to communicate with us, and when we open up and we listen, we're in relationship and we're co-creating heaven here on earth. So I am so excited to share Donna with you and share all the things that she's taught me with you. And so Donna, I'm so happy and blessed to have you here today. And if you could just share with the audience now how it is that you came to blend your background in shamanism with your background in astrology, because what you're doing is extremely unique. There's no other astrologers that I know of that is actually teaching shamanic astrology in the way that you have come to teach it. So please share with us your story about how you got here.
Oh, thank you for that lovely introduction, Amanda. I am so honored to be here too. Right now when you're talking, I was listening to the planets, just like in a little cheering section, that their voice is being given a form that everyone listening can start to tune into it. And that really makes their day. Finally, their voices are coming to the table in a new kind of way. So how did I get involved in this? Okay, well, I was a professional astrologer for a number of years, just getting started with my practice. And I did what probably a lot of you listening have done, which is I wanted to get it right. And so I made sure that I did my homework, and I got all my books out and piled them up, and I looked up things to make sure I could give my client the best possible reading that I could do. And it would take 2 or 3 hours sometimes to compile all this information. And they would come and I would deliver it all. And they said, thank you very much. But I was left feeling flat, you know, from the experience. And then when they came back in a month or 6 weeks or a year, however long, a lot of times they would be saying the exact same things about their life that they had been saying to me before. Their struggles hadn't changed. Not a lot had changed in their lives. And so I'm like, what is it about what I am doing that's not connecting? I mean, I'm a pragmatist on the one hand. I want everything that I do to have some kind of practical utility. And the other hand, I'm also a healer. And so when I see suffering and pain, I want to help in some way. And I felt like my astrology just wasn't doing it. So it finally dawned on me, and it just like, oh, wait, I know what the problem is. And it's that transformation, like deep transformation that changes our lives, comes when we are in alignment. So what do I mean by alignment? Well, that means when our heads, what we think about, and our hearts, what we feel, and our physical bodies and circumstances are all acting in accord with one another, that we are integrated. And integral just means, acting as one, so to speak. So when I was doing my astrology, I was simply operating on that mental level, the intellectual level, but there was no heart, and there was certainly no stuff, no kickable, pragmatic stuff. And I said, I have to do this differently. Oh, I know what to do, which the fact that it took me so long to get here is amazing. I had been studying shamanism for 10 years. At the time I was getting my astrology practice started, and I'd worked with a woman who was well schooled in a hermetic form of magic for another 5. So I had this overwhelming amount of training in the practical arts of how to connect to spirit. But it never occurred to me until that moment to incorporate it with my astrology, because I had, like most of us, learned out of books or learned off of internet. Okay, there wasn't an internet when I started learning, but books and the printed word. And that to recognize, hey, wait a minute, these things fit together. They have to fit together. I said, what am I missing here? So I took the work that I was doing with my teachers, and I was very, very fortunate. I had 2 amazing teachers, one of whom had lived on a Native American reservation for 10 years. She taught us, everything from journey work to ceremonial kinds of techniques to making talismans and sitting in circle. I went to ceremony like every night for 6, 7, 8 years. So I had that, and then I had my hermetic magic teacher, that was total mind-blowing experience, and both of them were taught in the original way, which is mouth to ear, all oral teaching. So I asked my hermetic teacher, I said, this is what I want to do, but I don't know where to look. And she says, Donna, I hate to tell you, but you're probably going to have to go back, at least 500 years, maybe 2,000 years into the history of astrology before you find what you're really looking for. And I was like, wow, okay, I have a lot of homework to do, because I didn't know anything about a deeper kind of astrology. I had just learned a kind of modern astrology like most people do these days. So one thing led to another, and it led me delving deep into the history of astrology. I met traditional astrologers. I did a ton of reading. I even started learning a little bit of Greek and Latin so I could read some of the passages in the original languages to put them all and then I used my shamanic training to fill in the pieces. And I still remember when I read the Chaldean oracles for the first time. A friend of mine who was learning, she got the first master's degree accredited in astrology in the United States. She says, you need to go read this book. And so I got a translation from Interlibrary Loan, and I started reading the descriptions of what it felt like to speak for the planets. Now, Grant, this is written 2,000 years ago, and they started describing the feeling of having the planet come down and move into your chest and sit on your throat and into your body, and then becoming the voice of the oracle. And I'm like, oh my God, I do this every week, and they're writing about it 2,000 years ago. Why is this not in my astrology books? And if you can see, I have a lot of them. So I come to this. I was in graduate school when I first started doing all of this. I am a scholar by training, but I also happen to have this amazing psychic, intuitive, life-affirming experience. And so for me, the practice of shamanic astrology allows me to connect that science, that academic side of mine, with my heart in a way that brings them into alignment. So the mere practice of doing your astrology this way is going to bring you into a closer alignment with yourself and the people that you work with to make deep change happen much more frequently and in amazing ways than you couldn't possibly imagine until you take your own journey.
Awesome, Donna. Thank you so much. I can just feel your passion for this, and it's totally contagious. And what I love about this too is that you don't have to be an astrologer in order to benefit from these tools and techniques. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, because what we're talking about, when you say the word astrology, most people think of, oh, your sun sign horoscope. Or if you maybe you've learned a little more astrology, you think about the chart that we're all used to looking at and trying to figure out. Okay, that was just a tool created by shamanic astrologers in one culture at one place in time. And it's a really useful tool. I am not denying that it is a great thing to learn. I am practically a Juilliard trained astrologer myself at this point in time. I love the technique. But every culture, every indigenous culture on this planet that has spent any amount of time in nature, and human beings have been relatively the same in this form for like a few 100,000 years. All right, we have been looking up at the sky. And for the first couple 100,000 of them, we didn't have charts. We just didn't exist. And yet we still connected. The Hawaiians who found those islands were connecting to the planets without the use of astrology charts. So you can connect to this kind of energy just as effectively if you don't learn how to read a chart. In the scholarly terms, they call it omen-based astrology, if you want to know the fancy term for it. But if you do want to go ahead and learn the techniques of astrology, it can be a powerful tool to help you figure out when the most auspicious times to connect are, or what the essence, which planets were strongest at that particular moment in time, or for a particular person. So there are reasons to learn, but you certainly don't need to if you don't want to learn the whole chart mechanics.
Awesome. Okay, so the term shamanism conjures up images for a lot of people and ideas. So can you talk to us a little bit about what shamanic astrology is and what it is not?
Absolutely. Okay, so pulling those two words apart, let's look at the shamanism part first. The word shaman was actually sort of coined by anthropologists in the early part of the 20th century. They were doing research into the indigenous people of Central Asia, and in one of the communities that they were studying, the word for the person in the tribe, so to speak, who connected us to spirit was shaman. And so they began using it as kind of a catch-all term for anybody in any society who fit that kind of role. So shamans come from a worldview where everything is alive. So the rocks and the trees and the rivers and the other people, but also the spirits of the animals, the spirits of the dead, our ancestors, even the planets. Everything has consciousness. For the mere fact that we are all part of a gigantic cosmic consciousness, and that us here, the physical stuff that you can kick, is just kind of a slowed down, crystallized, dense form of consciousness, but still consciousness. So that shamans were adept at the practice of learning to connect their consciousness to the souls of everything around them. And that included planets. So planets, we're used to the idea of talking to like the earth spirit, Gaia, in an environmental context, that the earth herself, Mother Nature, has her own spirit as a living experience, and that we are all engaged in this experience as creatures who live on her. So why is it so hard for astrologers to get the idea, if you can be okay with Earth Mama, why do you think that the planets are not talking to you too? I mean, hey, they're here. they're just as old as the Earth. And so, of course, they have their own kind of conscious experience. And to the ancient Greeks who invented astrology, there's a whole myth. It's actually written by Plato. You know, the guy who wrote The Republic and all these other famous things. It's in his work. You can go read The Republic if you want to check it out for yourself. It's called the myth of Ur. And in the myth of Ur, the planets are like the weavers. They're literally spinning out the fabric of reality. And in essence, they're the cosmic midwives. They are what allow the presence of spirit to find a vehicle in physical form. They're weaving the tapestry. And by knowing that about them and by working with them, they are the, central agents in how you make things manifest. Because that's what they do for all of us. Every astrology chart, in a way, is like the lattice on which our consciousness, our souls, actually get to be physical. I mean, people don't even ask that question. How do we get from being spiritual beings to physical beings? How do we get shoved in these little bodies, so to speak? That's what they would say. The planets did it. And so that's why we have all this mythology about the divine ladder and the angels walking up and down. The ladder is the planets. You can even talk about it. They're all arranged in a pattern like a ladder for a reason. That is how we get here. So working with it this way, all of a sudden we realize I am co-creating reality with the planets, this cosmic dance of ours. I am, the Native Americans called it twisting woman. It is the goddess who manifests, because there's a certain twist that happens, and the planets are the ones twisting. That's why they go in those circular orbits, down to spiral into us. So who wouldn't want to join this cosmic line dance? It is ecstatic and joyful to create in this way. And the fact that we can do this now, it's always been in our astrological practice. We've just forgotten recently. So let's bring it back to the table and see what happens.
I'm in. It's interesting, Donna, as you were speaking, I was recalling at my children's school, they go to a Waldorf school, and in kindergarten, they have this ceremony on your birthday. And they do this little play, this little puppet show where when you were in spirit form, you came down the rainbow bridge and you came to Earth. And of course, the rainbow has 7 colors, and we're talking about 7 planets. So what you were just describing, I was seeing, it was like, whoa, literally we're coming down through the rays of the planets and onto Earth.
Rudolf Steiner was a very huge advocate of astrology. That was on purpose.
Fantastic. I love it. Okay. So what you're talking about is really making astrology a living spiritual practice, bringing it from the flat dimension of a chart or a screen and making it come alive. Can you talk to us about that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So let's just get down to this key paradigm shift, because this is really important for most of us to understand. I want you to remember in your head, when you first came to astrology, most likely it was because you were reading horoscopes in some place, and you learned what your horoscope sign was, and you looked up the definitions of those 1 and 12. Okay. For me, it's way back in the 70s, and they had these star scrolls that they would sell in gumball machines. And I just physically really liked those little baby scrolls, and you could take them out of the gumball machine and read them. I thought that was really cool. I didn't think astrology worked, but hey, I like those little scrolls. So I'm sure there's others out there who are listening who might remember that. But if you started learning astrology, started to move beyond those 12 signs, all of a sudden you had this, oh my God, wow, experience. Because not only were you weren't just a sign anymore, but there was a moon sign, and there was a Venus sign, and there was a Mars sign, and they were all someplace in the sky in their own houses, and they were in relationship to each other. It was like that star scroll all just came alive with more dimension. So if you think of the star scroll as one point, all of a sudden you have a line. You have all this more information that was telling you about this cosmic pattern and suggestive. So what I'm telling you is that you can take this information a step further. There really is more to go in the astrology world, and that's by going up, making the spirit connection. They call it the vertical dimension in psychology, the sacred space. And that sacred space is to bring spirit back to the chart. So instead of just being a line, now you have a cube that's actually working in multiple dimensions. If you do that, what's going to happen is a profound realignment. How you feel that you're moving through the world with spirit in every single moment, every breath that you take, every atom. This is the shamanic way of moving through the world. In fact, this was so much part of astrology. So you said in the beginning here, before I started talking, how do we bring this, to how we put this as part of the process? It's always, 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 always been part of the process. It started as the part of the process. It's just that here in the West, for various historical reasons, being able to connect directly with spirit yourself has been discouraged. And it's been discouraged because in the very beginning, when we met with these planets, they were called, the Greek word is daimon, and it's a great word. And they built a whole philosophy around being able to connect to your daimon. They called it eudaimonia, daimonia, which means loosely translated as happiness. And it's the same happiness that there is in the Declaration of Independence, by the way, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness means to connect to the good spirit, i.e. your planets, okay? But listen to that word daimon. What happened as the church institutionalized and they needed to make a place for themselves, daimon couldn't happen anymore because that meant you had a lived connection with spirit. And so they literally demonized the word and it became the word demon. And therefore the stars and the star spirits became star demons. And that talking to them directly was literally consorting with the devil. And this happened from St. Augustine for hundreds of years. Most of the work on this level went underground. It was kind of, put in the sidelines in magic, and as long as it didn't get too far out of place, or it existed as linking an angel, an archangel to every planet. So we still had it around, but as long as we were calling them angels and not planets, it's okay because they're still divine representatives of God. So we can work with that. So in the Renaissance, there was a reflourishing, like with so many other things, and art and music. They brought planetary invocations back into the equation. But as soon as we hit the scientific revolution, it shut down that whole spirit connection. Because once again, we got narrowed down to this very, very intellectual level. And this is why the part of astrology that survived is all intellectual, because it happened with the cross-cultural movements of astrology itself and how it fit into the larger discourse. So then astrologers, they almost got banned. It almost died out in the 17th, 18th, 19th centuries in there. And what it did survive, it did so by saying, oh, wait, we are scientific. We can predict the weather. Let us study that. And what a narrow, of course, they weren't even thinking about bringing in spirit to the equation. And we should be grateful for people like Carl Jung, who brought as much of it back into our consciousness as they did. But I'm sure in his heart of hearts, he knew this deeper spirit connection was possible just because of the way he talks about things. But he had to also fit it into some kind of sanitized context so that his work would be at least recognized and spread around. So what's happening now with the internet? We have the potential to go, oh, we have always, always, always had this. We can have it back. And right now, at this moment in history, we really, really need it back. All kinds of things are happening in the world, connecting to spirit as a spiritual practice, because astrology has always been a spiritual practice. It's about finding balance in your own life and learning how to create your reality. And it's a model designed for that. They called it astral theurgy back in the day. There are practices, there are rituals where you basically connect to every kind of planet's energy in order to internalize it and then transcend it. So we were talking the other day about the movie Divergent. If you've seen it, it is a great modern analogy of this very process where everybody's got their own faction, but that it was a genetic experiment that was designed to get the population to be able to resonate with these 5 different categories, which really are like 5 planets. in order to become divergent, masters of all of them. And that's what astrology was for. Once you tuned into each one, first of all, your personal team, but then all the others, you got to be the master creator of your own reality by using them all as like balance points, because life is always changing. There will always be crazy and chaos. There will always be different things. But when you can have a moving homeostasis that's constantly balancing you and keeping you checked in balances across these 7 categories, all of a sudden, you are so much more flexible and so much more able to react to your own reality that you can bring it in a different kind of way. And so this is what I'm talking about when I hope people learn that it can be a spiritual practice again. All of this stuff is written down. I'm not making this up. It's findable for those who want to look for it if you know how to look. And I was just very, very lucky that I had the scholarly training to be able to do the research, plus the shamanic training to make the research that I was reading make sense in a larger context.
Ah, Donna, awesome. Okay, so what I'm curious, you just described an effort to disconnect us. And this is how I started the webinar with, many of us do feel disconnected. But what I'm curious, I just want to ask the audience, how many of you have felt a connection to the planets and actually feel like you can tune into the energies of certain planets? If you do, just go ahead and write yes in the chat. I'm just curious to see. All right, we got absolutely, awesome, yes, absolutely. Okay, it's probably why a lot of you are here.
Awesome. And I get this a lot. Like I just did a retreat for a group of local priestesses in training out in the hill country. And I had one professional astrologer on the group, and she was like, I am so grateful that you're doing this, because I have always wanted to connect my Wiccan spirituality with my astrology, and I never knew how. And I thought about it, and she said the same thing. Why didn't I think of this before? I thought I was the only one. And unfortunately, that's what's happened in our astrological community, because they're books. Books require a certain level of intellectual discipline to write in the first place. The classes aren't being taught at conferences because of habits. And, we've had various reasons for not putting this stuff out there. And things are getting better. Things are definitely shifting faster and faster. I'm not the only one coming to this conclusion. But to not have spaces, it's kind of like suburbia in the sense that we're all in these little boxes and no one's talking to each other unless you know that you can connect to someone and the topic comes up in conversation. How do you know you're not the only one? So I'm just grateful we have this forum to really get in deep to some of these issues, because I'm just telling you what a lot of you already know. And you know it. So why don't we do it?
Awesome. Yep, Donna, it's so amazing. So I would say, really quick math, that about 25% of the people on this call have felt a connection, a direct connection with the planets. So that is so cool. So we're already scratching the surface, and I'm sure a lot of you have gone a lot deeper too. So I know just from working with you that there are, based on our individual charts, we have certain planets that are more pronounced than others. And so tell us a little bit about the energy of each of the planets, and then we'll get to how we can actually tune into those in a sec.
Okay. Well, everything that we've been talking about so far has been, we have been talking about the 7 visible planets. And when I say visible, meaning you don't need a telescope to be able to go up and look at them. And these are the ones that we have been working with for, thousands upon thousands of years. So I'm going to focus on them from now, but I just want you to put a pin in the idea we are not going to ignore the other planets. And we live in such an amazing time right now where, like, every 6 months we're discovering that there's another planet out there. So that has got to be part of where we go moving forward. But for right now, I'm just going to start working with the 7, because they're our old friends and our old faithful, and they're the ones who are domestic. They're used to us. They're as much used to us as we are used to them. So the meanings of planets. There's been a lot of writing in astrology. When you read an astrology book, and if it's in the introduction, they give some passing reference to the myth of astrology, which is, oh yeah, since Babylonian times, we've been keeping records about what all these planets mean, and we look in the records, and therefore we know. And so here I'm going to tell you what that is. And that's actually a myth. They're thinking of history as that clearly linear is really oversimplifying things. And there's a very good chance that our first understanding of planets and what the planets wanted comes from how they look in the sky. Because before we even have a written language, we could see what they looked like. Moving a step back, the planets are special in the sky because, unlike all the fixed stars in the background, they move. Even the word planet literally means wandering star. So these are the planets that inhabit this band of the sky that we call zodiac. The word zodiac means the way of life, among other things. And it's a word that we use for zoo and zoology. It's things that are alive, things that have spirit. Same word for animal and anima, animus that we talked about, animistic religions. So this was the way of life. This was the way of spirit for our cosmos. So planets that moved through that band, all right, since they moved, anything that moved, the ancients said, oh, if they're moving, they must have soul. So what is soul? Soul is to change and have desires. That's kind of the essence, the original definition of soul. So if something has soul, if it wants something, how do you figure out what it wants? What is its telos? It's a word from Aristotle. It means the end purpose, its end goal that it's moving towards. What does it want? How does it fulfill itself? And if we know what it wants, then maybe we can help it get that thing, whatever that is. And since these cultures were based on reciprocity, I help you, you help me. You know, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. So that was the idea. You help the planets do their work so that they can turn around and help you do your work. And I mean, seriously, who doesn't want the cosmic creators on your personal team when you are creating your reality? That seems like a very logical way to look at the equation to me. So what the planets wanted, I mean, all you have to do for a minute, if you are lucky, because, you know, I read this report that today, 2/3 of the world's population, according to the United Nations, cannot see the night sky anymore. All they get is like the light pollution glow of the urban center that they live in. 2/3 of the population lives under a perpetual orangey coated sky.
Wow, can we ask real quick, just to the audience, let us know if you can see the sky where you live. Just say yes in the chat. I'm just curious. Okay, cool.
If you are one of the lucky ones.
Sometimes, yep. Okay.
I mean, I live in Austin, like way far north, and I can see a few stars, but it's like Orion and Sirius and a couple planets, and most of them aren't moving, like airplanes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we have a lot of people who can, but a lot of people who can't. Okay, so I was really curious. Thanks for chatting in, everybody.
So let's imagine, if you could, for a moment. We all know the sun. Just go out and stand in the sun and ask yourself how you feel. It's the big bright thing that energizes us and enlivens us. It has to do with vitality and health and power and leadership. And the moon doesn't have any light of her own. Actually, the moon's reflectivity is about the same as coal. So think about that for a minute. It's like a great big ball of coal. The only reason we can see it and it's so bright, is that it's so very, very, very close to us. And just as an aside, we are having the closest full moon in 100 years this coming weekend on the 14th. So bring in the moon energy. This is the perfect time to start having this conversation, because the moon, who's all about collecting light, and she translates the light from all the other planets to all of us. So I would imagine just because you were here, over the next few weeks, you're going to have some amazing dreams about planets, because the moon is like going into like once in 100-year overdrive and bringing in the planet light. So here we are talking about this. I think it's amazing. So, okay. Moon collects, nurtures, supports us in life. Mercury is other than the moon, it's the fastest moving thing in the sky, and it's always jumping around, going invisible, turning around, going different directions. It retrogrades 3 times more often than anything else. It's all about things that transact, things that communicate, the fast little thoughts that move around and jump around in our head. They used to call it the jumping planet. So jumpy Mercury, he's a jumping bee. Venus, beautiful. Brightest thing in the sky after the sun and the moon. She glitters and she's just humongously, she casts her own shadow. So because she's always being drawn back to the divine slowly, she represented the nature of love and desire and what we want and pleasure. And to the ancient Greeks, love in its highest form brings you into closer alignment with the divine. That's what its highest form, that's what beauty does for us. That's another reference from Plato, by the way. So these major philosophers that we had to study if you go to school were talking about these things. And we just glossed right over them when we were in graduate school. You know, all these other things I talked about. Shakespeare, loaded with astrology. Dante, one of my favorite books, The Divine Comedy, it's an astrological allegory. Why did we not talk about it this way? Because we've been sensitized to think of astrology as sun signs and nothing else. Whereas Dante is visiting each one of the planets and pulling their essence into himself. They totally stole the Greek way of thinking about astral theurgy and put it in a Catholic context and made one of the best poems ever written. Think about that for a minute. So, okay, back to Mars. Mars is the first planet outside the orbit of the Earth, so that means it's the first one that can appear anywhere on the sky. Mercury and Venus are kind of hooked to the sun, and it's red, that ruddy red color. So it was associated with warriors and taking a stand and saying this far and no further, and strength and what you need to be able to compete and fortitude and all those kinds of things. Jupiter's after the sun and the moon and Venus is the next brightest thing in the sky, but it can be anywhere. And under the right conditions, it can also cast a shadow. So because of the way it orbits, which is about a little less than a 12-year cycle, it spends exactly 1 year in every sign of the zodiac. So he was associated with the perfect right relationship, that you are in perfect alignment with the cosmic plan. You can call it right relationship, you can call it justice. But when you're in perfect harmony and alignment with the cosmos, of course, abundance follows because you know how to manifest things in the world. So he's the planet of abundance. And I think some places you can say luck, that'll work too. But I like abundance and prosperity a little bit better. Saturn, last planet out that you can see, has the longest orbit. And so it had to do with the maturation process and things that you learn, the wisdom gained through aging and experience. So things like self-discipline and temperance, knowing that in order to chart our course, we have to take control of that. And we cannot give in to every single whim and desire. We have to maintain balance and a center point, which is why it was considered a planet of mysticism, because it was the one that recognized, oh, wait, I have to walk the middle path. Going too far in every direction will spin me out of control. And so how do I weave that point and hold my center? So it was a very strong planet ally to have in your corner because it gave you self-discipline. It gave you the ability to work with all these different forces and help you put them together. So this is a very simple and elegant way of thinking of your life. I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's that 7-pointed star. Keeping in the center of the 7-pointed star is what the planets will let you do. So this comes up again and again in our culture. So like recently, there's this movement in psychology, rather than focusing on all the things we do wrong and making these big books about all of our mental disorders, instead saying, all right, we're doing psychology wrong. What we should be doing is focusing on our character strengths. And by understanding our character strengths and developing them, we will have the stuff that we need to face anything in the world. And sure, we're always going to have things that are broken, but let's figure out how to deal with them by relying on the resources that we have internally. So they rewrote the way psychology is being done. This is called the positive psychology movement, founded by Martin Seligman. Their character strengths divide up into, I don't know, 7 categories, more or less. Based on the research, they went around the whole world and wrote down all the virtues that everybody considered important, and then categorized them all and ended up with 7. Well, you know, I know this. I don't know. This is probably new information for Martin Seligman and his folks. Martin, before he was a psychologist, was a philosopher. He studied philosophy at Princeton University. And so he was big into reading on Aristotle and all the rest of them. Well, you know, Aristotle was like steeped in all this astrological context himself. So of course, there were virtues associated with every planet that you had to invoke in your own lives. And so the classical virtues are planets anyway. So of course they ended up in the same place, because once you understand how these pieces fit together, they're all drawing from the same source material. Even if the people drawing on it don't recognize that their source was originally astrological. So here we have this great team that's in our corner all the time. All we have to do is open our eyes and open our hearts and recognize, hey, they're there. Let's tune in and ask them for their help. They want to play in this great sandbox as much as we need their help. So why not do that whole marriage made in heaven thing and work together, because everyone benefits from the shared experience.
All right. This is such good stuff, Donna. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So not all of us know how to do this. Not all of us know how. You know, we open up and we bring the planets into our bodies, and this all sounds amazing.
How do I know I'm not imagining things? Yeah.
No. I'm not imagining things. But the question is, I know that there's specific shamanic tools that we can use that are tried and true and practiced and tested that actually help us streamline that process and get into alignment. So
absolutely, that's what this is.
Some of those practices.
Okay, so I just to start, I did not start out this way. Okay, a lot of people come to, you know, New Age spirituality because as a child they talked to fairies, or they spoke to angels or people's high, or they saw auras or something. I had none of those experiences growing up, 0, because if you can't tell, I'm a bit of a geek, and I am a member of Mensa, National Merit Scholar. I am perfectly happy in the intellectual world. I got tons of kudos for being in the intellectual world. I just had to get to the point where I realized it wasn't enough for me, and that I needed more. And for me, it was actually a health crisis. I got really sick when I was in graduate school, and probably because I kept trying to ignore this entire side of life and keep in this little narrow intellectual band. And my life fell apart. And I mean, I managed through one thing after another. I actually started studying shamanism and a lot of other kinds of spirituality. And I realized, oh, well, no wonder it's not going to, I have this whole side of my life I didn't even want to pay attention to. So I had to go through this. And it wasn't until later when I started learning astrology that I pulled up my chart for those moments when I was going through that transition. And oh, guess what? There was Pluto sitting on my Sagittarius ascendant and impacting all of my other planets. So, I mean, I love Pluto because Pluto gave you this. I mean, really, this lecture would not be possible without Pluto. So I just want you to know that I don't want to kick out any of these planets just because I'm talking about a few of them, because this is what once you fully engage, this is how you can get to your life. So back to these techniques. Because I had to start studying shamanism, I had to start learning them for myself. And the techniques are what broke open these areas of my life by consistent practice of them. So things that the ancients used, there's a whole bag of things, because people are people, and we're all different, and we all need something different to get us there. So guided visualizations, what we call hypnosis today, those work really well. Any different kinds of energy work can work really well. Working with your dreams. You know, they used to build dream temples. They didn't build hospitals. Think about this. They didn't build hospitals the way we have today. They built dream temples. And if you were sick, you went to the dream temple, and they induced sacred sleep, and you cultivated messages in your sleep that the dream priests and priestesses would then interpret in order to get a diagnosis of what was ailing you. And then they would make an herbal formula or other things based on the received wisdom that you got. Now, how different is that from our current medical practice? The fact that it was involving you and connecting you to spirit, I mean, that was already a step towards healing right there. Because by aligning...
Put yes in the chat box if you want to go to a dream temple. Let's all go. I know, me too. Okay, keep going. Sorry, Donna.
We still have what's really, really ironic about all this is that the medical symbol that we use today, the caduceus, you're all familiar with it, with the cross with the two snakes going up it and kind of wings off the top. All right, so that emblem that stands for the Red Cross and the whole profession is actually called the Staff of Hermes, because it was given to Mercury, that's the Greek equivalent of Mercury, by the sun, as a reward. Mercury stole all of his cows and then had to give them back. And then Apollo was like, oh, okay, thank you for giving them back. Here, I'll give you this caduceus as a token of our reciprocity relationship. Well, the caduceus is actually the astrology chart. You can demonstrate it. It's a map of the zodiac. And that Hermes used to carry it around as a symbol of his power, so to speak. And what we use today as a symbol of medicine was the staff of Hermes going up and down between the worlds and connecting us on this level, because that's what they used to do in the dream temples. And that's where the word hypnosis comes from, because the god of sleep was named Hypnos. So they named the process of hypnosis, which is connecting your subconscious and your conscious mind and your higher consciousness, in a sense, to each other in order to start the healing process. That you will heal from within when you are in proper alignment. And that we still have remnants of this today, but when people say the caduceus, they don't know that. They're carrying around the symbol of astrology in our entire medical practice. Isn't that awesome?
That's so awesome. Okay, so self-hypnosis, dream work. What about planet trancing?
That's what we nicknamed using hypnosis with your planets, planet trancing, because I thought it was funny. And you go on interplanetary journeys.
So it's kind of like shamanic journeying. Now,
it's like shamanic journeying.
Talk to us a little. There's a conception that shamanic journeying always includes the use of plant medicine or drugs. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. It's been a long practice in various shamanic cultures to use some kind of mind-altering substance. So if fasting's not working for you, or if inducing pain is not working for you, you can at least have mind-altering experiences. But I can tell you from my own practice with my two main teachers, but even other spiritual practitioners that I've worked with, the number one rule is no drugs. Done. And the reason they're so hardcore about that one rule is that when we were learning, we needed to be able to build the muscles for ourselves. Now, psychedelics can get you far out really fast, even if you have no ability to deal with what you're seeing. We chose to go the slow route around simply because it allowed you to build those fine, discriminating mental muscles along the way. And that because of the work that we were doing, where you needed to be able to talk to the planets or the plants or the rocks and the trees or the other people that you're with, you needed to be adaptable. And when you're working with psychedelics, you are on its frequency. And you can't move around to other frequencies. You're on its frequency going on its journey. And it can be profound and powerful, but you're not in the driver's seat. You know, when you're on psychedelics, you are not in the driver's seat, and you're very aware that you're not in the driver's seat. But the kind of shamanic work that I needed was trying to get us consciously in the driver's seat so we could be co-creative partners in a sense. So again, your mileage may vary. I know that hallucinogens are coming back into this culture en masse very quickly. It's another reason that we need to get this information out there, because it will help the people who do want to go that route at least put it into context for what they're doing, rather than having a whole bunch of totally untrained people doing all kinds of things recreationally and making themselves a little nutty in the process. So I'm glad we get a chance to talk about this now, because it really will give you a powerful foundation and some choice for how to work with these energies within yourself.
Okay, awesome. All right, so you've mentioned a few techniques for us to really be able to align with the energy of the planets. And we are actually going to do together a guided visualization soon. And then we're going to answer your questions. But before we do that, I wanted to tell you all about an opportunity to work with Donna in this realm more. So I'm going to share my screen for those of you who are on your computers and tell you a little bit about the Shamanic Astrology online training that we're going to be offering here starting November 15th. But before I do that, I want to share a quote because I love this. It's from a woman named Melinda Rodriguez, and it says, "Awaken your inner shaman. She is your ancient self, the one who harmonizes spirit and earth. The part of you so deeply entrenched in nature that authenticity, intuition, and love surround you. Awaken her from her dream and synchronize with the power to heal, step into purpose, and live as your sacred self." And I love this because I think all of us deep down are yearning for this sacredness, for there to be a deep fundamental purpose in our lives and in the way that we live. So this Shamanic Astrology course is going to enable this type of connection. So what you'll receive in the online training: it is a 6-week course with 12 modules. Each week you'll receive 12 modules. Donna has put this entire course together with so much thought and intention, and it's just a beautiful creation that she is sharing with all of us. And Donna, do you want to talk a little bit, real brief, about the actual curriculum and the modules and what's going to be delivered?
Absolutely. So you can think of it in kind of 2 parts each week. The first part is really the heart of the matter, which is getting you connected to each one of your planets. So there's a video for each planet. There are, we will walk up the planetary ladder, so to speak, through the course of the presentation, so that you'll have a chance to meet with every planet in its own planetary realm. They all have meditations to go with them, so that you can dive really deeper into your own connection and not just listening to me, but also bring it alive with your own experience. So there's about a 45-minute training for every planet. Russ von Oelhausen has taken my videos and made them glorious. So I'm very excited to be able to share.
They're like mini documentaries, you guys. It's amazing. So cool.
They're really cool. There's that half of the equation. So the second half of the equation that we have a little bit every week is learning the actual tools of doing shamanic journey work. So it starts out with introductions, then, putting this in historical context, and then really a double training on learning how to do hypnosis. It's about a 2-hour crash course in being able to do it for yourself, why it works, how it works, and how to do it for yourself with step-by-step instructions. Then moving on to, for those people who do want to learn some astrology, we put a little crash course in some very basic astrological essentials, so that the next week you can go and learn how to identify your planetary best friends, which planets are strongest in your chart, and then which ones, I call them special needs planets, because there's always going to be some planets we're more aligned with than others, and some that need a little extra help if they're going to help you manifest things in the world. So you might as well work with them both. And then finally, in the last week, we talk about all the new planets that we've discovered, and we take all of the techniques from the other sections and apply them. It's like, okay, the ancients did the first 7 planets for us, and we have lots of practice using them, and here's all their practice. But our generation, is responsible for doing this kind of work with everything we're discovering now. So I want to invite you to take the model that we've tried out and tested and use it with some of these new planets like Mackay and Sedna and things that people aren't even writing about. But ask yourself, how come the astrologers stopped talking to planets beyond Pluto? And what are we going to do with those other 30 sitting out there? And if Pluto counts, why don't they? And these are questions no one has answered yet, and I don't have all the answers either, because it's going to take generations of us working this way, working in concert to try to figure out how this fits into our lives. And we need to do it through lived experience, not just looking at a plain chart and going, oh, well, I think it means this. So then you get a whole bunch of competing ideologies and none of them agree with each other because they're not connected to source anymore.
Okay, well, that sounded to me like an invitation, Donna. An invitation to the audience to do their own exploration. So this is awesome. I think we're going to be pioneers discovering a lot of new things about these new planets. The course is also going to include weekly live Q&A with Donna, and this is going to be your opportunity to come with questions specific to your chart, and these all will be recorded, so if you can't make the times, you'll be able to access the recordings. The course also includes what Donna likes to call the heart of the course, which is the guided meditations. These are journeys to each of the planets. You'll see here that you get to go to the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. These are all guided meditations that Donna is going to share with you in her she can get super passionate and excited, but she also has this amazing voice when she's guiding in meditation, which you'll get to experience here very soon. Donna has also put together audio versions of all of the courses. So for those of you like me who find it difficult to tune into videos, you can take the audios in your car, you can take them on your walk, you can take them with you and keep up with the course content that way. Transcripts are also available, and this is your way to study the material, highlight it, make sure that you can refer back easy to things that that piqued your interest. You can do that with the transcripts. This all is going to be housed in an individual membership portal. This is where the content will be. You'll log in with your unique username and password, but then you also can download the content. So if you want it to live locally on your computer, you can do that here in the membership portal. And you'll have access to the material for an indefinite amount of time. We'll at least have this portal up for a year, but it probably will be up for years. But then again, you can download and own the content for life. You will also get access to a private Facebook community. This is where our conversation will be brought to life. This is where we can have these kinds of, conversations that not everyone might understand, where you can bring your authentic self and you can bring all the experience that you've been having and you can share it here in the community. You can also bring specific questions about your chart. Donna's going to be in the Facebook community monitoring and answering questions. So that is another part of this course. You'll also receive a level 1 certificate of completion for Shamanic Astrology. We do plan to offer a level 2, so this will be a prerequisite for that level 2. You'll get your level 1 completion after you finish the course. You're also going to receive some bonuses, and these bonuses are designed to meet all of your different needs. So the first one is how to find your planetary best friends. For those of you who are wondering right now, I remember when Donna first started talking to me about this, I was like, well, who are my BFFs? Who are my best friends forever, my planetary BFFs? And so there is a cheat sheet that you'll get, or worksheet, to figure out who your planetary BFFs are. Also, for those of you who, Donna mentioned this before, for those of you who are not as familiar with astrology, you'll have an opportunity to learn the foundations of astrology. None of these are prerequisites for you getting the most as you can out of shamanic astrology. However, if you want to learn, these foundations are going to be here. In addition, for those of you who are professionals, and maybe you are already an astrologer, maybe you're a therapist, maybe you're a healer, maybe you're a coach, you can learn how to use shamanic astrology in your private practice. Donna, do you want to tell us a little bit about this bonus here?
Sure. As healers, when we start representing or working with other people on these really deep levels, we really are taking on a deep responsibility. It's an honor to be asked to work with someone. And then, so these are all the questions that we have to keep top of mind when we take on that responsibility for leading someone else. So it's the ethics of what we're doing. It's the importance of having your own personal practice. It's the, now that I've learned all this stuff and I want to start applying it, what happens if things go wrong? What is wrong look like? And so how do you work with clients in distress, and how you get a referral book, and all the things that you need to do as the real professional. But also, if you're going to do this, what continuing education would look like. So for me, I had all this shamanic training. I had 15 years of like training in the original sense, but since I was going to be working with the public, I went and got official certifications. I went to the National Hypnosis Guild and took their trainings and got a certification. I did the whole Usui Reiki training. I found all the modern analogies that I could to what I had learned in shamanism, so that I could be officially representing and have more skills in the bucket. So how you do those things is all in this book.
Awesome, Donna. Thank you. So some really practical, tangible things that you can use. Okay, so one more just to recap what you get as part of this training: 12 modules of downloadable video lessons. You're going to get weekly live Q&A calls with Donna for all 6 weeks of the training. It starts November 15th and goes through December 22nd. You'll get guided meditations for each of the planets. You'll have audio lessons for your car, your phone, or your MP3 player, full transcripts of every video in PDF format, an individual membership portal, private Facebook community, and level 1 certificate of completion for Shamanic Astrology, plus the bonuses: how to find your planetary BFFs, astrology for beginners, this is electional astrology 101, and how to use Shamanic Astrology for healing professionals. The total value of all of these is $779. And normally the course will go for 3 payments of $97, but right now for the next 2 weeks you have access to purchase this course for 3 payments of $67. We are really all about making this information as accessible and affordable for as many people as possible, and so that is why we have this price now at 3 easy payments of $67. The access to actually purchase this course is now in the chat box. Just click the link and you can access this page, which also has a lot more detail on all the modules, on everything you're going to get. So please check that out. The link is in the chat. And okay, I just wanted to mention too that the way the payments work is, let's say that you purchased today, it's November 2nd, your first payment would be today, your second payment would be December 2nd, and your third payment would be January. January 2nd, so over 3 months. All right, Donna, let's now ease into the meditation.
Okay. Well, if you're like me, we don't spend nearly enough time slowing down in our daily lives, which is such a shame, because there is so much power to be had, even for just spending a few moments connecting to those deeper bits of ourselves. So as you're sitting here at the computer listening, just allow yourself to breathe in, knowing you're breathing in a relaxing vibe, and breathe out any stress or tension that you're holding on to. And as you allow your gaze to soften and your eyelids to get heavy, just imagine yourself sinking deeper into relaxation. With every breath you take in, relaxing, and every breath out, allowing yourself to sink. In fact, you can feel all of the tension moving out of your body and sinking all the way past your feet, down into the center of the earth, allowing you to just melt with every breath in, relaxation, and every breath out, sinking. Allow yourself to sit in this place. Feel your consciousness centered in the middle of your head. From the middle of your head is the crossroads from which you can travel anywhere. So as you sit and relax, you can see images begin to form in your mind of a beautiful night sky, and find yourself walking along under the brilliant stars, and then see the aurora begin to shine light, waving gently overhead. And as you watch, notice the colors of the aurora begin to shift in that cosmic dance, moving across the heavens. and feeling the aurora come and begin to dance around you. And as you watch these, you realize these are representations of the light, of the rainbow bridge of the planets, surrounding you, so joyful to know you and connect with you. Feeling the strong red of Mars moving into your energy field, reaching down to every cell of your body. And then the brilliant diamond light of Venus playing through your body and soul, shifting now to the energy and vibrancy of Mercury, the alert and aliveness the planet brings, down to the stately movements of Jupiter, walking through the cycle in perfect harmony with all of the other elements. And the velvety darkness of slow Saturn, helping you to understand that your self-discipline and detachment can help you navigate whatever happens in our lives. To the silvery light of the moon, collecting and nurturing you, recharging you in moments like this and when you sleep, awakening your intuition. And to the brilliant golden sun who shines within every cell of our being. The sun for us is life. Its light illuminates all the dark places and brings us closer to truth, vitality, and recognizing the creative power that we hold within us. Knowing as these 7 lights dance around you, that they are always with you. They've always been with you. You just open your heart and receive them. Whenever you have need, just ask. They're waiting to help you. And so it's easy to now turn from this place and begin the journey back to our waking world, because you have this secret, this knowing that the planets are part of your creative birthright for you to tap into. So as you come back to the waking world and begin to feel once again your feet and your legs and your arms, waking up, feeling refreshed and invigorated by your encounter with the planets, knowing that this process will continue through the nights and days to come as the energies assimilate within you. You smile to yourself, and when you're ready, just slowly open your eyes and behold the amazing life we have been given.
Oh, Donna, thank you, thank you, thank you. That
You're
was
welcome.
so lovely.
And it only took a few minutes. If we could do that one thing every day, how different would our worlds be?
Entirely. Absolutely. Okay, so now we would like to open up to Q&A. For those of you who have questions, please submit them via the chat, and we will answer a few questions, and then we'll wrap up. Donna, I'm going to ask Donna to share with us any final messages that the planets might have for us, so stick around for a few more minutes. Okay, so a question from Carrie. When does the course one-time offer end? Great question, Carrie. You have until November 14th. which is that big, huge, super full moon. November 14th is the day before the class starts, so that will be your final opportunity to join, because November 15th the class starts. And we like to create a nice sealed container for everybody, so November 14th. And I've had a couple questions from people who are in the middle of trainings with, maybe they're taking another astrologer's training right now. And so the question is, how many hours of course materials are there per week? And I'm going to let Donna answer that part of the question, but I also wanted to just mention that you'll have access to the course for an indefinite amount of time. And if you download, you'll have access forever. So even if you purchase the course now but don't get to the content later, that's okay. We do not have plans right now on the calendar in 2017 to offer this course again. So we may decide to do that, but at this point there is no plan for 2017 to offer the level 1 shamanic astrology training. So this would be a great time to get on board and join us. Donna, do you want to talk a little bit about how long the course material is per week?
Sure. Okay, there are about 2 hours of video training per week. It varies in the week. Some have a little more video and more writing. Most weeks have no writing, unless you want to read the transcripts. But here's the thing. Half of that is planet talk. Okay, so guided meditations for working with the planets. And your homework is basically meditating with the planet every day, in a sense. So you're really, it's total immersion in the planetary realms. So it doesn't matter who you're learning your astrology with, because this isn't intellectual kind of astrology. It's heart-centered astrology. It's not like you're going to be memorizing more stuff. You're going to be living it. And if you do this, this would be like trying to learn a foreign language, but with total immersion as part of your process. So whoever you're learning with, you're going to learn like 10 times faster. And I know, because I have taught beginners for years. I teach at Kepler College. I actually used to teach journalism at the University of Texas for a while. So I've been teaching for a very long time. So I know this will empower your learning on whatever level that you're doing right now. So I say, you know, add some fire to what you're doing, and you're going to like just pep up your practice, so to speak.
Awesome. Okay, so Jen would like to know if there are actually assignments each week. Knowing you, Donna, I am sure you're going to include some assignments.
Yeah.
Will you be making assignments to the...
I give my clients homework too. Yeah, for those of you who are astrologers listening, I'm like all Virgo, Sag, and Gemini. So nothing is required other than, you know, integrating this material in some way. Some people will come to the Q&A. Some people will be really active on the Facebook group. So however it fits in for you, yes, I will probably have some suggestions for what you should be doing. But a lot of it is just, whenever you're working with a spiritual practice, whether it be learning how to meditate or learning how to do mantras, your homework is to meditate or do mantras. So that's the same with this program. Your homework is to actually do it. Don't just read about it. In this case, it's not enough to read the book, because if you're not participating in the process, you're not going to get the benefit of the deep transformation that's truly possible. So that's up to you, but I say go for it, right?
I was going to say, it's always true that we get out of things what we put into it, right? So, and you're offering this opportunity for this really multi-dimensional experience. So that's...
And I just want to point out, we are going into like early holiday season. People are going to get really stressed. I highly recommend meditating through the stress, because you will get less stressed. So, I mean, in a way, this is kind of a healing practice for you in the difficulty season that we're going in. And quite frankly, the world needs all the de-stressing right now it can possibly get.
This is very, very true. Okay. What time are the Q&As each week?
I know they're 7 p.m. Thursday Central Time. Most days, except for Thanksgiving week. But I don't know what time zone that is for other people. So you have to do the math. 7
p.m. Central. They're also they're all recorded. So if you can't make one, then, or any of them, then they're all going to be recorded and available to you as well. Okay. So Donna, would love to end with any final messages that you and or the planets as they're speaking through you might have for this particular group.
The biggest message that I get, because now we've done several of these presentations, they are so excited. The planets are so happy to just have the possibility of other minds to connect with. And that's the thing about this program. It's not just about me. This is not just my work. I mean, almost everything I've told you can be read in somebody's book somewhere if you go back far enough. I am just bringing it back in a modern vocabulary in a way that's useful for you. So they're just so excited to have a kind of reintroduction for us, because we're the dense ones in this, not them. They're fine. They've been up there for a long time. So, and it's not just the planets that we use in astrology. We can't forget that the Earth is also a planet. We're talking to planets, but we live on a planet. And that planet has her own desires, her own evolutionary process. And I think every single one of us recognizes that as residents of planet Earth, that her process is going to be bumpy ride along the way for those of us who've gotten used to our habitual ways of doing things. And the planets in our solar system have always served as midwives to the Earth. That is the original Greek mythology of them. They spin with the Earth when we make things manifest. And so that by connecting to them, we are bringing the midwives back to Earth in a conscious way to help us all co-create the next level of our planetary evolution. I think that's why this is so important right now. And that when you join in this process, you are becoming pieces of the puzzle that the Earth so desperately needs right now. And that we all need, because, you know, hey, if something's wrong with the planet, we're the ones who live on it. So all the more reason to tune in a very, very real way, in a way that already resonates with your astrology.
Fantastic, Donna. Thank you so much. And what I'm hearing is this gives us an opportunity to be stewards of a whole new realm of, I love what Ashley says, peace and prosperity on this planet. And so in working in conjunction with Mother Earth, Gaia, and all the planets, we get to enter into this amazing, beautiful co-creative process.
This is the age of Aquarius, right here, right now. And we are all participating in it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Donna, for sharing your incredible enthusiasm and your passion and all your years of training with us. Thank you, each and every one of you, for showing up tonight, for sharing your energy, your spirit, your mana. It has been such a pleasure to share this space with you. Really, really look forward to continuing the conversation, diving even deeper with those of you who will be joining us for the course. And for those of you who are not joining us for the course, just look for more and more opportunities to continue learning, continue making astrology a part of your life. That is one of our main goals at Astrology Hub, is to really bring astrology back into all of our day-to-day lives as a centerpiece, as a focal point, as a guide, as a tool, so that we can all live better lives and experience a new level of peace and beauty and harmony on this planet. All right, thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon. Aloha, everybody.